After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learn astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the lagna and the meridian center MC, and he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So, my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions, and after learning those tips, I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology, for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest. Welcome to Shastrikara's Astrological series. This is the presentation about the topic Vivah Vilamb. That means this is Vivah in Sanskrit means marriage. Vilamb means unable to get married. So about this topic, I already had 4 parts in my YouTube channel. This is the 5th part, and in this 5th part presentation, I'm going to take 2 female charts and I'm going to give in as much detail as possible based on the astrological knowledge that I have gained. The reasons why the 2 female natives who were around 30 years as of June 2020 and still unmarried. So I want to figure it out from astrological perspective. What was the reason for them to not to get married? Just like the remaining 4 parts you liked it, I'm hoping that you will like this 5th part too. Let me start analyzing this chart, D1 chart, the Rashi chart for this particular female native who was born on 17th June 1987 in Chennai. If you look at it, the Rashi in the Rashi Lagna is Pisces, Lagnadipati is Jupiter. So we will start from the Lagnadipati. Lagnadipati Jupiter is in the 2nd house from Rashi Lagna, and if with the assumption that the time of birth is correct, if you look at it, the Lagnadipati is 0 degrees inclination in Aries. That means the Lagnadipati Jupiter is in Rashi Sandhi. So when the Lagnadipati is in Rashi Sandhi, the native's life will be is in a chaotic or a unsettled manner. It will always be like in a troubled waters, not figuring it out which way exactly to go. And now if we take a Rashandi Lagnadipati, consider it to be in the 1st house, then what you see is that the Lagnadipati has co-joined with Rahu in the 1st house itself. Rahu and Lagnadipati, they both are now having a direct aspect on the 7th house. This itself tells you that for this particular native, the 7th house is 100% dynamic, chaotic and unsettled. So just by looking at the Lagnadipati and the position of the Lagnadipati from a high level altitude, you can say that the native's 7th house is spoiled. And now we got to go further deep to figure it out. Even if the 7th house got spoiled, what about the other important houses that are indirectly related to the marital life, and see was there any strength in those houses or the lords, so that this particular drag that we are having in the 7th house gets either subdued or nullified. So the next thing what we do from Rashi Lagna, you see the important house is the 3rd, 4th house. The fourth house Lord is Mercury. Oh, by the way, fourth and seventh house Lord is Mercury, and Mercury is residing in its own house. That's a very good sign for the NATO. And but along with Mercury, it is reside along with the fourth house Mercury in fourth house. Mars and Sun are also residing. That means the fourth house Lord is co-joined with the violent planet Mars and Sun. Sun is sometimes considered to be malefic. Here, Mars is the second house Lord and uh, ninth house Lord too. So if you look at it, the second house pertains to the family Kutumba Sthanamo. So with Mars being in the second house Lord, residing in the fourth house, uh, it indicates that if the NATO got married, the Kutumba Sthanamo will be more dynamic, or it will be very unfriendly family members, means after marriage. This is, I'm talking about the family members after marriage, the in-law side, and it has co-joined with the seventh house Lord. That's the reason why I said it is family members after marriage. And then if you look at it, the sixth house Lord is Sun. Sixth house is separation, house of separation. So when the second house Lord Mars, a violent planet, is co-joined with the fourth house Lord Mercury, fourth and seventh house Lord Mercury, and also co-joined with the sixth house Lord Sun in the fourth house, this tells you that if the NATO gets married, this is the if statement here, if the NATO gets married, the NATO's marital life will not be happy at all because of this unique combination. And since Sun, the sixth house Lord, is co-joined with the seventh house Lord and the second house Lord, there is, and the ninth house Lord Mars, there is a possibility, if the NATO gets married, there is a high possibility for the NATO to get separated. Now, as I said earlier, the seventh house already got spoiled because of Rahu and Lagnadipati being in Rashi Sandhi and co-joined with Rahu in the first house and having a direct aspect on the seventh house. And now the fourth house got thoroughly spoiled because it has co-joined with the Mars, the second and ninth house Lord, the violent planet Mars, and the sixth house Lord, house of separation planet Sun, and they both have co-joined with the seventh house Lord Mercury. After looking at the seventh and fourth house, second, seventh, fourth, and seventh house Lords, it's enough to tell that the chances for the NATO to get married is close to zero, and even if the NATO gets married, her marital life will not be happy, and there is a very high possibility for her to get separated. Since this is a female chart, the next thing I do is from the Chandra Lagna, natal moon, I first look at the position of natal Mars, and from natal moon, natal Mars is in the fifth house. It is not a Dagda Sthanamo or a bad house. So that's a one positive sign that the NATO do not have a Kuja Sthanamo when considered from natal moon. When looked from natal Venus, the Mars is in the second house, which is a Dagda Sthanamo. So the NATO has a Kuja Sthanamo, Kuja Dosha when considered from Venus. So after having all the issues with from the Rashi Lagna, from the Chandra Lagna, when looked from the Chandra Lagna, the NATO has no other issues because the NATO from Chandra Lagna, if you look at the position of natal Mars, the NATO has no issues, but the NATO have an issue if you look at the position of natal Mars from natal Venus. The next thing I do is from moon, who is the seventh house Lord. First of all, from moon itself is the sixth house Lord. Sixth house is house of separations. So from Chandra, Lagnadipati itself is sixth house Lord. And moon is residing in the house owned by Saturn. So the Lagnadipati from Chandra Lagna is Saturn, and the sixth house Lord from Chandra Lagna is moon. The seventh house Lord is Sun. So if you look at it, what is the Lagnadipati from moon? Lagnadipati is Saturn. So if you look at it, Lagnadipati is in the 10th house. That's not a big deal to worry about. Now that I had explained the house lords and how position of these planets, let's go and look at the aspects of this. The first and the foremost, since Jupiter is the Lagnadipati, let's go and see with the assumption that Jupiter is in Rashi Sandhi for sure. So we'll assume that Jupiter is in the first house, and from there, Jupiter's fifth aspect is on the fifth house, which is empty, owned by Moon. Seventh aspect is on the seventh house, which is where Ketu is residing. And then the ninth aspect. The ninth aspect is on Sagittarius. Yup. So where is Saturn? Is on Scorpio. The ninth aspect is on Scorpio, owned by Mars, and Saturn is residing. The 12th house Lord Saturn is residing. This is the most important thing that when we look at the chart is the ninth house talks about, particularly when you look at the chart and trying to figure it out, the ability for a native to get married, or if there is any marital discord. What I do is that look at the ninth house. From the Lagnadipati is now looking at the ninth house, which is the Dharmasthanamo, and in that ninth house you have the 12th house Lord Saturn residing. So the 12th house Lord is pleasures of bed. The Lagnadipati is the first house Lord. So the native, if the native, and Saturn is the Lord of the 12th house, and the Lagnadipati is looking at Saturn. So if the native is about if the native does get pleasures of bed, it would be from Saturn. And since Saturn is a malefic planet, the pleasures of bed the native gets is either through, if the native gets married, it's through intercaste, interreligion, or any norm, any other norm that's against the society. Remember, Rahu is in the first house looking at the seventh house. So the marriage has to be, if the native does get married, it will be either a intercaste, interreligion, or in a norm that is against the society, because Rahu always does something that is not expected. And to add this, Rahu, Saturn is the 12th house Lord. So naturally the pleasures of bed is also pertains to something that is not expected, is either from intercaste, interreligion. The boy is either in intercaste or in interreligion, or the native gets it from through other norms that is not acceptable in the society. And now Moon is there in that 12th house from Rashi Lagna, which is the mind. So the native's intentions has to be co-matched, should be somehow. But if the native has no such intention, then the chances for the native to get married is close to zero. Since Saturn is the 12th house lord from Rashi Lagna, or whether you actually, you know what, whether you look from Rashi Lagna or Chandra Lagna, Saturn is the 12th house lord. So take the natal Saturn and then start looking at its aspects. So Saturn's third aspect is on the 12th house from Chandra Lagna. Like I said earlier, the mind is Chandra Lagna and the 12th house is pleasures of bed. And then Saturn's direct aspect is on Taurus, where the natural 7th house Lord Venus is residing, and which is the 3rd house from Rashi Lagna, but the 4th house from Chandra Lagna. And Saturn's 10th aspect, the most important, the Saturn's 10th aspect is on Leo, owned by Sun, and if you look at it, that is the 7th house from Chandra Lagna. So, and the 6th house from Rashi Lagna. So you can see the 6th house from Saturn will be responsible, like I said earlier in this presentation, if the native gets married, the chances are very high for the native to get separated. And here, if you look at it, from Saturn's 10th aspect is on that house owned by Sun, and Sun is Saturn's bitter enemy. So naturally, whether you look from, if you look from Rashi Lagna, the Saturn will be the right person to get the native get separated from her spouse. And if you look from Chandra Lagna, Saturn is the right person for the native to get married to an intercaste, interreligion, or any other form that is against the society. Let me start analyzing the Behurugu Chakra using the Behurugu Chakra Paddhati technique for the possibilities for the female to get married. As I said earlier, there will always be a planetary combination, and that provides an opportunity for the event to happen. So let's start looking at when were these opportunities did this female need to had it. We know that she couldn't get married. That means the opportunities provided by the planetary combination, she could not use that opportunity, avail that opportunity. So the first and the foremost what we do usually is Venus is when the cycle ruler is Venus, that's when the possibility for a male or a female to get married is extremely high. That means approximately from the age of 24 or 25 the opportunity begins, and it goes all the way till the age of 36, that is the 12 years, 24 through 36, and then there's another opportunity that will be between 37 and 38 year, that is sun, provided sun is depending upon which house the sun owns and what are the afflictions, all those things. But now let's go and look at Venus. For this particular native, Venus is the 8th house lord. So when the 8th house lord is 3rd and 8th house lord is Venus, and Venus is residing in its own house, the 3rd house. So whatever the Venus does, it has to be something that is odd because it owns the 8th house. There are sometimes, I think in one of my previous presentations, I had shown how the 8th house or the 8th house lord helps the native to get married. So here the 8th house lord is Venus, who is the natural 7th house lord. So the chances for this native to get married is high when the Venus is the cycle ruler, that is when the native had completed her 24th birthday, and that's when the chance begin. And once the native completes her 36th birthday, the chance ends. That's our 12 years. So if you look at it, that means from June 2011 plus 12, June 2023. So these 12 years are the chances. Now let's start looking at from June 2011 onwards. The first and the foremost thing is, since Venus is in the 3rd house and the 8th, it is nothing which happens when the native was between 24 and 25. So between June 2012 and June 2013, that is the first opportunity the planetary combinations had provided to this native, because Venus activates the 2nd house from Rashi Lagna and the 2nd house from its natal position. So if you look at it, the 2nd house from Rashi Lagna is the place where natal Jupiter is on a Rashi Sandhi. So since it is a 2nd house, it is the Kutumbasthanamo. The 2nd house lord is Mars, and the Mars is in the 4th house from Rashi Lagna, and again Mars is in the 2nd house from Venus itself. We know that when Mars is in the 2nd house, it's at Kujadosha. So because of that reason, the chance for this native to get married between June 2012 to June 2013 is close to 0. So she lost that opportunity. The planetary combinations did not help the native to get married at that time. The next one is June 2014 to June 2015, when Venus activates the 4th house from its natal position and from 4th house from Rashi Lagna. When it activates the 4th house from Rashi Lagna, it is activating the house where the house lord Mercury is residing, and Mercury is also the lord of the 7th house. So the activation was extremely high, and to add it, the 2nd house lord Mars is residing, so there's a huge hope that the native might get married during this period, through 2014 till 2015. Unfortunately, at the same time, in the same house, you have the 6th house lord Sun is residing, which is the house of separations. So the marriage possibility came very close, so close that everybody might have thought that it's going to happen, and all of a sudden marriage got cancelled due to Sun the house of Lord for the house of separation. And the next one comes is the most important is 2017 through 2018 June. That is when Venus activates the 7th house from natal position and the 7th house from its from Rashi Lagna. 7th house from natal position is Mercury. Mercury is in the 4th house, Kutumbasthanamu, sorry, the Sukhasthanamu, home life environment, and so the chance is good. And also 7th house from natal moon is the 9th house owned by Mars. So 9th house is Dharmasthanamu. But the reason why it did not happen, two things. Number one, from Rahu is in the 1st house. So when Venus activated the 7th house from Rashi Lagna, Rahu is also looking that house that got activated. So in case if the marriage does happen, it has to happen against the social norm because Rahu is looking at it. And then Venus, when it activates the 7th house from its natal position, that means it is activating the 9th house from Rashi Lagna, which is the Dharmasthanamu. So the Dharmasthanamu has got activated, and Saturn, the 12th house lord, is residing in the Dharmasthanamu. So Rahu is now having a direct aspect on the activated house, 7th house. So the marriage should be something against the social norm. Venus has activated the Dharmasthanamu, where the 12th house lord Saturn, a malefic, is residing. So the pleasures of bed also should come to this native from a person that does not belong to the same caste or community. That means a intercaste marriage or interreligion marriage, or a marriage that was against the social norm. Since the native did not encourage any of these things, the planetary combinations had provided the opportunity, but the native was not interested in doing it. So the marriage did not. So she couldn't get married. This was when Venus activated the 7th house. That means between 2017 and 2018. Now we will go to the next one. Is when is the last possibility, the next possibility I should say, that is when Venus activates the 12th house. When Venus activates the 12th house from Rashi Lagna, it's activating, of course, the house owned by moon, owned by Saturn, and the Matrukaraka moon is residing there. So as I said earlier, Saturn it's a 12th house is the house of pleasures of bed, and Saturn owns it, and now that house will get activated between 2022 and 2023. And then Venus, when it activates the 12th house from its natal position, it's again the 2nd house from Rashi Lagna, which is the Kutumbasthanamu. So when these two things are happening, just out of curiosity, I tried to look at where is the 12th house lord Saturn in a transit planetary motion, and I found out that during that period there is a high possibility for transit Saturn to be in Aquarius. That means the 12th house from Rashi Lagna co-joining with the natal moon Matrukaraka. So from Chandra Lagna, both moon and transit Saturn will be looking at the 7th house directly, and the 7th house lord is Sun, which is the bitter enemy for Saturn. So it is not going to be a cakewalk for this native to get married between June 22nd and year 2022 and 2023 June. In that 1 year, even if the planetary combinations had shown some sort of a signal that there is a possibility for the native to get married, it will not be a cakewalk for her. And also it has to be something that pertains to intercaste or interreligion marriage. This is the last but one opportunity. The last opportunity that I can say is between 2024 June and 2025 June. That is when the 7th house lord from Chandra Lagna Sun activates the 2nd house. So if you look at it, the 2nd house from Sun is the 5th house, but unfortunately it is the 5th house from Rashi Lagna and the 6th house from Chandra Lagna. Again, Sun is the 7th house lord is activating the 6th house, the house of separation. So there are two possible things that can happen between 2024 and 2025 June. Number one, if the native got married between 2022 and 2023. Then in 2024 and 2025 June, there's a high possibility for separation. If the native hasn't got married in 2022 or between 2022 and 2023 June, then there's a possibility for the native to get married in 2024 and 2025 June. But again, that is a high risk, and it's not an easy one, because transit Saturn is co-joined with natal moon in the 12th house from Rashi Lagna, and Saturn owns the 12th house. So from looking from a marriage perspective, 12th house deals with a lot of other things like foreign settlement, working for a foreigner. That is from the career perspective and the life perspective. But from marriage perspective, 12th house deals only with pleasures of bed. So the chances is that if I look the activity of what is happening in 2024 and 2025, when I look from the marriage perspective, if the native got married in June 2020, between June 2022 and June 2023, the native will get separated between 2024 and 2025. If the native does not get married in between 2022 and 2023, then there's a small possibility for the native to get married between 2024 and 2025, but even that one is not that easy to say so. Let me start analyzing the second example. This is another female chart that I'm going to explain the reason why this particular native was unable to get married. For this native, the Lagnadipati is Mars, and Mars is the lord of first and sixth house lords, the sixth houses, and Mars is residing in the fourth house. Mars is residing the house owned by Saturn. So that's the first and the foremost thing we need to see when we look at the native, the first house. And now comes what planets are residing in the first house. If you look at it, the Matrukaraka moon is residing in the first house. Mercury, the lord of the 8th house. Mercury is the lord of the 8th house. Mercury is residing in the first house, and Saturn, the lord of the 3rd and the 4th house, is residing in the first house, and above all, Ketu is also residing in the first house. So when Ketu is residing in the first house, that indicates that Rahu is residing in the 7th house. Just like the previous example, even for this female native also, Rahu is in the 7th house. Another thing that I want to tell here is, if you look at Mars and Saturn, there's a Parivartana Yoga between Mars and Saturn. Saturn is residing in the house owned by Mars, and Mars is residing in the house owned by Saturn. A Parivartana Yoga by two malefics is always an indication that it is not a good sign. Now, for what purposes is that not a good sign is depends on person to person, depending upon the chart and the houses that they own. Here, for this female native, Mars is the first and sixth house lord. Sixth house is house of separation, and the first house is Tanustanamu. So, and Mars is residing in the fourth house. This tells you that it is not a good for this particular native if the family environment, Sukhasthanamu, fourth house is Sukhasthanamu, the family environment will not be good for this native, and that may lead into, because Mars is there, it leads into frequent fightings, verbal and physical fightings. And if the native got married then that will lead into into separation. And here the second thing is Saturn. Since Saturn is in the first house, it is looking at the seventh house and owns the third, fourth house. That irritation, that separation will always be there pertaining to the spouse and spouse family members. And now let's go and look at the other important things. Since Rahu is in the seventh house, the most important thing that you have to see is it's having a direct aspect on Saturn. Also, Rahu is having a direct aspect on the 8th house lord Mercury, which is not a good sign. Rahu is having the direct aspect on Moon, which is the Matrukara, which is not a good sign. So for this particular female, when you look at the very first house itself and try to look at the ownership of the houses, that the planets that are residing in the first house and the houses, the planets that are aspecting the first house and the other houses, then you can clearly say that from just by looking at the D1 chart, it's clearly visible that this particular native to get married is not a cakewalk. It's a challenge for this particular native. Having gone through the planets, first and the seventh house planets and the first, fourth and seventh house planets, assuming that the time of birth is correct, let me go and look at the inclinations of these planets. If you look at it, the ascendant is 3 degrees in Scorpio. That means the lagna itself is in Rasi Sandhi. So that tells you that the native's life will be is in a not in static, it's very dynamic because of this Rasi Sandhi. And then the second thing you have to look at it is the Rahu is in Rasi Sandhi. Rahu is in 7th house. So being in Rasi Sandhi, that means Rahu is swinging between the 6th house and the 7th house. If we assume that Rahu is in the 6th house, that is a house of separation. If we assume Rahu is in the 7th house, that is the marital life. So that's the reason why this particular native's marriage ability to get married became such a big challenge. The third thing that I want to see here is three more things. Moon, the Matrukaraka moon, the inclination is 29 degrees Scorpio. That means moon is also in Rasi Sandhi. So the Matrukaraka is in Rasi Sandhi. The next is Mars, the Lagnadipati. Mars is 3 degrees Aquarius and Saturn is 0 degrees Scorpio. Oh gosh. So if you look at it, the Lagna is in Rasi Sandhi. Rahu is in Rasi Sandhi. Moon, Matrukaraka is in Rasi Sandhi. The Lagnadipati and the 6th house lord Mars is in Rasi Sandhi, and above all Saturn itself is in Rasi Sandhi. So if you assume Saturn to be in Rasi Sandhi, that means Saturn is swinging between Libra and Scorpio. Libra is the place where it got exalted. It's in exalted mode. So by being in a Rasi Sandhi in the first house, Saturn still has that strength of being remained as in its exhalation. That indicates that Saturn not only staying in the first house, it is also owning and controlling the 12th house. There's a Bhigurga Sarla Paddhati rule which says that wherever Saturn resides, not owns, resides, he shouts that he owns that house. So with Saturn in the exhalation mode residing in the first house indicates that Saturn owns the first house, not the Mars. And now Mars is residing in the house owned by Saturn, and there is a Parivartana Yoga. So you can assume here that for this particular native, it's both Mars and Saturn together owns the first house. And when two malefic planets are owning the first house and another malefic planet is in the 7th house, then the chances for the native to get married is almost close to 0. Since this is a female native, what I usually do is I look at the position of natal Mars from natal Mercury and natal Venus, because I just want to see if there is any Kuja dosha. If so, what type of it is there. Moon is in Rashi Sandhi, as I said earlier. So if I assume that Moon is in first house, Scorpio, then natal Mars is in the fourth house from natal Moon, which is a Kuja dosha. And if I assume that Moon is in the 12th house, that means in Libra, then Mars is in the 5th house, which is not a Kuja dosha. So when looking from Moon, even the Kuja dosha was so chaotic. Now let's go and look at Venus. Oh, by the way, even Mars is also in a, how is Mars? Mars is also in a Rasi Sandhi. So if you'll take Moon, if the Moon is in Scorpio and Mars is in not in Aquarius, Capricorn, then it is in the 3rd house. If you assume Mars is in Capricorn and Moon is in Libra, then it is in the 4th house. So even the Kuja dosha between Moon and Mars is not static. It's not clearly visible. It is so much of dynamic is there. So because of that, this particular uncertainty, the native's 4th house from Moon is completely spoiled, and that might be another reason why the native was not married until now. And now let's go and look at the position of Mars from natal Venus. If I assume that Mars is in Aquarius with 3 degrees, then from natal Venus it is in the 2nd house, which is a Kuja dosha. If I assume that Mars is in, because of 3 degrees, it is not in Aquarius but is in Capricorn, that means it co-joined with Venus. That means Venus and Mars is in the 1st house from Venus, which is also a Kuja dosha. So from Venus perspective, the Kuja dosha is 100% confirmed, irrespective of whether Mars is in Capricorn or Aquarius. From Moon perspective, if Moon is assumed to be in the 1st house, then Mars, then the Kuja dosha is there for some when Mars is in Aquarius, and it's not there when Mars is in Capricorn. If the Moon is assumed to be in Libra, then the Kuja dosha is not there when Mars is in Aquarius, and Kuja dosha is there when Mars is in Capricorn. So much of uncertainty is there, not only from the Lagna, because the Lagna is in Rasi Sandhi and there are so many planets in Rasi Sandhi, even from the perspective of natal Moon and natal Venus, to look at the Kuja dosha, even that itself is also, you can see that it's nothing is clear for this particular native. The last thing I do from a D1 chart is to look at the aspects of some of the important planets. First and foremost, since Mars is the lord of the 1st house and the lord of the 6th house, let me start looking at the aspects of natal Mars. Mars' 4th aspect is on the 7th house, residing in the 4th house. Its 4th aspect is on the 7th house, where natal Rahu is residing. That's the biggest drag. Mars' 7th aspect is on the 10th house, and 8th aspect is on the 11th house, so that's fine. But Mars' 4th aspect is the biggest drag for this particular native when it comes to the ability to get married. The next thing I look at is Saturn. Saturn's 3rd aspect is on Capricorn, where the 7th and 12th house lord Venus is residing. That's the second drag from the Saturn. We already saw a biggest drag from Mars aspect, and now from Saturn's 3rd aspect we are seeing another biggest drag. And Saturn's direct aspect is as usual on the 7th house, and Saturn's 10th aspect is on the 10th house. We don't need to worry about the 10th house. The next thing that I want to look at it is Jupiter. The reason is Jupiter is the 2nd house lord, 2nd and 5th house lord from Rashi Sandhi, from Lagna. So, and even Chandra Lagna too, from Rashi Lagna or Chandra Lagna. Jupiter is in the second and fifth house lord. Second and fifth house lord. Second house is Kutumbasthanam, fifth house is Putrasthanam. So those two are indirectly related to the ability for the native to get married. But Jupiter's direct fifth aspect is on the sixth house, which is the house of separations. Seventh aspect is on the eighth house, which is the not a good sign, and seventh, eighth, and ninth aspect is on Sun, on the Leo, which is owned by Sun, and Sun is co-joined with Jupiter too. So even Sun couldn't do any major thing, major help to Jupiter, because Sun and Jupiter, they both are residing in the second house, and as I said earlier, the Saturn residing in the first house is still in its exhalation status. So it's if you assume Saturn to be in Scorpio, then it spoils the bhava of the second next house next to it, which is the second house. If you assume Saturn being in exhalated and Rasi Sandhi is still in Libra, then Sagittarius will be third house for Saturn, and using its third aspect, it spoils Jupiter and Sun. Sun is a bitter enemy for Saturn here. So either of the way, whether you look Saturn from Scorpio or Saturn from Libra, either of the way Jupiter is got afflicted. So Mars fourth aspect has afflicted the seventh house. Saturn's third aspect, if we assume Saturn in Scorpio, its third aspect is on Venus, which is the 7th and 12th house lord. If you assume Saturn to be in Libra, then its third aspect is on Jupiter, which is the second house lord. So either of the way, this particular native, whether you look from the ownership of the lords, the house lords, or the planets residing in the house, or the Kujadosha from natal moon and natal Venus, or the aspects of the important houses, the being aspected by important planets, all the four ways, if when I look at it, one thing is clear, that the ability for this particular native to get married is close to zero. Let's go and look at the Bihuru Chakra Paddhati for this female native, to look for when were the possibilities for her to get married. The planetary combinations gave her the possibility to get married. So let's go and start looking. First and the foremost I do is I start from when the cycle ruler is Venus, which is at the age of 24. I mean, after the native completes her 24th birthday, that's when it starts. So the first possibility is when Venus activates, first of all, the Venus, when it activates the first house from its natal position, it is the third house from Rashi Lagna and Chandra Lagna. So third house has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do when it comes to the possibility for getting married. And also when Venus activates the first house from Rashi Lagna, it's going to activate the self, and that means where your Matrakaraka moon is residing. But unfortunately, moon is, even though moon is looking at the 7th house, there is Rahu over there in the 7th house, Saturn is in the 1st house, and the 8th house lord Mercury is there. So even if the Venus has activated the 1st house, the possibility for the native to get married became close to zero. And the second is the second house. When Venus activated the second house from Rashi Lagna, which was between December 2009 to December 2020, now nothing happened, because from Venus, natal Venus, the second house, Mars is residing. Mars is the 6th house lord, so it will not make it happen. It's the 1st and 6th house lord, forget about it. And from Rashi Lagna, the second house is the 2nd house lord Jupiter and Sun are residing. But as I said earlier, Saturn has already spoiled the bhava of the 2nd house. So even if the house gets activated, the lord couldn't do anything. So the third opportunity is between December 2011 to December 2012. That is when Venus activates the 4th house from its natal position and 4th house from Rashi Lagna. If you look at the 4th house from natal position, Venus, from Venus, the 4th house is the 6th house from Rashi Lagna, which is the house of separation. So by activating it activated the 6th house, so the chances are close to zero. And the 4th house from Rashi Lagna is the 4th house, but you have the 6th house Lord Mars is residing there. So the activation did not happen. The next year, that is the time when I was confident that something might have happened, but of course it failed. So that is between when Venus activated the 5th house from its natal position and 5th house from Rashi Lagna, which is between December 2012 and December 2013. When Venus activated the 5th house from its natal position, it's the 7th house from Rashi Lagna, and it's a lord of the 7th house too. So Venus has activated its own house, and that too which is the 7th house. So the chances would have been extremely high for that particular native, this particular native, to get married between 2012 and 2013. But the things did not happen. Two reasons. Number one, Rahu is in the 7th house. Number two, Saturn's third aspect is on Venus itself. Okay, and Saturn's direct aspect is on the house that Venus has activated. So we don't know if the chances had come and failed, or the chances had not come at all. I have no idea. And the next possibility is 2014 to 2015 December. That is when Venus activates the 7th house from its natal position and 7th house from Rashi Lagna. When it activates the 7th house from Rashi Lagna, it's not going, nothing is going to happen. So now let's go and look at the 7th house from its natal position, which is the 9th house from Rashi Lagna, which is the Dharmasthanamo. But the Dharmasthanadipati is Moon, and Moon is a Matrukaraka too. So the Dharmasthanadipati and Matrukaraka Moon are in the 1st house, co-joined with the 8th house Lord Mercury, and co-joined with malefic planet Saturn, and having a direct aspect from Rahu. So the chances becomes close to 0. Now you have to go all the way till December 2019. Between December 2019 and December 2020, that is this year. This is June 2020. So what's the possibility before the end of year 2020? Will this need to get married? That's the question here now. When you look at it, Venus activates the 12th house from its natal position, which is the 2nd house from Rashi Lagna. That's a very good sign here, because in the 2nd house you have the 2nd house Lord residing. And that according to the transit positions, transit Jupiter will be in 2nd house, co-joined with natal Jupiter until 29th November 2020. So between, this is June 2020. So from June 2020 till November 2020, these 5 months, Jupiter will try its level best for the native to start a family. That means to get married and start a family. Jupiter only will try its level best. But at the same time, when Venus is activating the 12th house from its natal position, transit Sun is co-joined with natal Venus. Natal Saturn's third aspect is on natal Venus. So that means natal Venus is now one way or the other have a direct relationship with both natal Saturn and transit Saturn. So it won't be, even if it activates the 12th house, as I said earlier, like for the female native that I explained in example 1, even for this native also, because of 12th Saturn activation, the chances are possible for the native to get married only if it is intercaste or inter-religion, or since Rahu is in the 7th house, something that is against the social norm. I don't know what are those. So we cannot tell, because I have no idea about that family and this particular native's family. So other thing is, Venus also activates the 12th house from Rashi Lagna, which is Libra, its own house. So that this is the best possibility for the native to get married is before December 2020, provided the boy that she is going to get married, should be it's an intercaste, interreligion, or something against the social norm, like the male has already got married and divorced, or the male already got married and was a widow, or something like that, and then this female is marrying a male who was already married and divorced or separated or became a widow, something like that. The last opportunity is Sun. When Sun activates the 2nd house from its natal position, which is between December 2021 and December 2022. The reason why I said Sun is another opportunity is because Sun is residing in the second house with the second house Lord, and when it activates the second house from its natal position, which is the place where Venus is residing, that means it is activating the house where the 7th and 12th house Lord Venus is residing. The possibility is good. And also another chance is, another good thing is, by the time December 2021, the chances are extremely high for transit Saturn to go away from natal Venus and join with Mars. Unfortunately, since Saturn is going to join with Mars, the 6th house Lord and the 1st house Lord, again the same thing happens. If the NATO got married between before December 2020, there will be some sort of a separation between the NATO and the boy that the NATO got married between 2021 and December 2022. That's the first thing, if the NATO got married. If the NATO did not get married in before December 2020, again the possibility for the NATO to get married is high between 2021 and 2022, but that won't last for a long time.